Good morning and welcome to Morning Java here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. Brought to you as always by Get-Go Cafe and Market, where for a limited time you can get their smokestack pulled pork sub or sandwich, slow smoked for 16 hours. It's a great sandwich. I've been there. I suggest you get there as soon as you can. I'm Chris Carter, NFL analyst here with Chris Bradford, and we're talking about the Pirates after they had a really rough week and they barely escaped a no-hitter. Well, they lost the game, but they were able to get out of the no-hitter, but they still dropped 3 of 4 to the St. Louis Cardinals and are just hanging above 500.
Yeah, it's been a crazy turn of events here over the last 2 weeks. They've lost, 5 series in a row?
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon against the Cardinals, nearly no-hit, gave up a grand slam in the first inning, so you had a feeling that this might not be their day. When that happens, Nick Kingham on the mound for that, but he did settle down. Then Waka becomes the Michael Waka of 2014 that the Pirates certainly remember.
Waka.
It takes the no-hitter into the 9th inning, and then luckily Colin Moran, of all people, breaks it up.
That was kind of crazy that he was the guy. It blooped right into right field. But it's kind of wild to see, the Pirates. But it's also what a lot of people were saying would happen, right? Because the Pirates, they were riding a good wave early on, but you knew these tough days were going to happen, and it's just about how you weather the storm. They have a lot of young players on both the starting rotation and in the bullpen, so it's kind of like you're taking your lumps. But I feel like what's going to really tell us how they can snap back out of this slump. Can they get a series? And they're going to have a tough job doing that against the Dodgers upcoming this week.
Yeah, got another tough series. The Dodgers, maybe not the National League champions that they were last year, but certainly a formidable opponent. And when you're the Pirates, you can't take any team lightly at this point. I don't think the Pirates are as good as they were at the beginning of the season, and I don't think they're as bad as they are right now. I think things will start to, kind of balance itself out, and we'll see the Pirates, probably be where I think most people expect them to be, which I think they're kind of a 500 team.
And moving to the NHL, where the Stanley Cup Finals are well underway, the Capitals, Chris, took a 2-1 lead in the series, and Ovechkin really seemed like he was right there to take charge, didn't he?
Yeah, this is the Alexander Ovechkin I think people were expecting to see, a decade ago. Well, here he is. He's finally on the biggest stage, and he's playing, like the generational talent that everyone has thought he's been, for a while. Now he's just having some playoff success. The Capitals take a 2-1 lead. You don't want to say the series is over, but I do think it's a must-win for the Las Vegas Golden Knights to get a split here in Washington. I expected this to be a long series. I still think that's going to be the case, but certainly Washington has gotten the momentum right now.
Yeah, it seems that way, and I mean they're in Washington. This next game is going to be in Washington tonight, and it's going to be really interesting to see can Fleury keep it up? Can the Knights sort of recapture some momentum? Because if they do that, they reset the series to a 3-game series, and 2 of those games will be in Vegas to finish it out, which is typically that's where you want to be if you're the home team. So I mean, and it's kind of funny. I feel like whereas yes, it is that way for the Knights. I kind of feel that way about the Capitals as well, because this is a team that this year so far they've shown we're not the same team that folded under pressure and that became the team that choked that everyone has said we are. We're not that team anymore. Well, if they lose this game, you get into a 3-game series with this other team that no one has had time to figure out because they're still in their first season. I think that puts a lot of pressure on them just as much.
Yeah, I think the pressure's always been on the Washington Capitals in this series. I mean, it is Las Vegas, and the Knights are playing with house money pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the first time that Vegas has had any real adversity this postseason. So it is kind of surprising to see them, Washington, kind of have their way with them. I mean, Washington is a very physical team. The Penguins certainly remember that. Tom Wilson hits, of course. But overall, just team-wide, they are a very physical team. And they're really cracking down on the defensive side of things. And the Penguins saw that also, I think, in games 5 and 6 in that series, is when Washington is playing its best, it's really playing a very solid team defense, collapsing its defense, not a lot of great chances. And Vegas doesn't have the type of scoring that even Pittsburgh had. So you can see why the Golden Knights are certainly in the situation they're in right now. Talking now about the Steelers. And there was a certain linebacker, I think, that you had some interest in, at least you thought the Steelers might have some interest in, a guy from the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, Michael Kendricks. Ends up not going to the Steelers, ends up going to the AFC North, but a team up in Ohio.
Yeah, the Browns were able to acquire Michael Kendricks. So I really didn't think Kendricks was going to be on the Steelers' radar. They even said they weren't interested in him. I think what this does is this impacts the inside linebacker market because if the Browns really were a team that were looking for another player to potentially become a starter, to pick out a free agency, that removes them from the market that the Steelers have to contend with coming into training camp. And I talked about this on the grind on Sunday, was that I think that the Steelers are being wise by just holding their cards and not making a play in free agency until they see how everything shakes out, because several things can happen between then and now. Teams could get more desperate for inside linebackers. Teams could get more desperate for other positions and want to trade the Steelers for a position, and maybe they get their guy that way, so they're not spending as much money getting a guy. But there's still guys out there. There's and there's Hodges, who was with the Saints. There's also Navarro Bowman, who's been the top guy that everyone's been talking about all summer. But the problem is that he hasn't been signed, and people are worried about his age and his impact and how things are going to go. Right now, Michael Kendricks being signed to the Browns, it sort of just moves that out of the way. I think it's a good thing for the Steelers, because they know that that's one player out of the way. But as far as making a move, I still think they're going to find a guy. Maybe not Navarro Bowman like everyone talks about, but maybe like one of those guys that can be the bridge between John Bostic, Vince Williams, and Tyler Matakevich, so that they don't have to rush Matakevich to the field if one of them get hurt. Now, an interesting conversation, Chris, that I think people always have, it's been since the dawn of baseball, is when the team that you're there to see is the team that's being no-hit, do you still root for the no-hitter to happen because you'd be able to get to see a part of baseball history?
I root for history. I'll be the first one to admit to. I mean, I think it depends. If the score like today is 4-0, where you figure, well, this game is lost.
Yeah.
It's the 9th inning. Chances of them coming back are slim and none. Then I think maybe you do start pulling. Maybe you want to see something you never, especially if you're at the game. Now, if you're at the game, I think you're always kind of pulling for history. Because I know I've been at a game before. I think it was Randy Johnson. I'm starting to date myself here, but Randy Johnson, I think was his first game with the Astros. Was at Three Rivers Stadium, and he took a no-hitter. I believe it was in the 6th or 7th inning.
Wow.
And I was kind of like, oh, I'd like to see this because I've never seen it.
I mean, that's something it's always electric. I've never been around. I think the furthest that I've been at a live game to see is going into the 5th. And I think it got to 2/3 in the 5th, and people were starting to talk about it, and then that's when it happened. This is why you don't talk about the no-hitter.
Exactly.
But I'm on the side as well. I think it's cool to see history, but also, like you said, you have different situations. Whereas today against Waka, they were down 4 runs. The game was pretty much over. Their bats were not going to come alive, and their defense, it was kind of God's way. But back in the last time they faced the Cardinals in the playoffs, when Wonka had a no-hitter going through the 7th, I think it was a 7th and a 3rd, and it was broken up. They ended up losing that game just 2-1. I think that's a completely different situation for fans when you're sitting there like, hey, I want my team to wake up.
Yeah, and also different was Max Scherzer a couple years ago. I think it was 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, with the Rodriguez one.
Yeah, and it was Jose Tabata. He puts,
that's right.
Leans into a pitch, to ruin a perfect game. I thought that was kind of cheap at the time, but it's like laying down a bunt in a situation like that. There's some kind of unwritten baseball rules that you're not supposed to do. But in a 1-0 game,
I remember it grazing his hand. It wasn't like a hit pitch.
But a 1-0 game is a little bit different. 4-0 to me, that's a game that's out of hand, and maybe you start rooting for history.
There you go. But I think that's a classic way. What do you think? Let us know in the comment section.